inspired by reports and folklore shared in rural communities. While the characters and specific events in this story are fictional, similar unexplained incidents have been reported in forests around the world. Michael Turner had worked as a forest ranger in Pine Hollow National Forest for nearly 10 years. The forest covered hundreds of square miles with towering pine trees, narrow dirt trails, abandoned cabins, and deep valleys where sunlight barely reached the ground. Michael knew every path and landmark by heart. He had rescued lost hikers, tracked injured animals, and survived countless storms. Because of his experience, he never believed the ghost stories that local residents loved to tell. The oldest legend was about a little girl who cried somewhere deep in the woods after sunset. According to the story, anyone who followed the sound of her sobbing would become hopelessly lost. Some returned hours later with no memory of where they had been. Others were never seen again. Michael always laughed at the tale. "Fear makes people hear things that aren't there," he would say. One cold October evening, the ranger station received an emergency call. A 21-year-old college student named Eric had gone hiking alone that morning and had failed to return before nightfall. With heavy rain expected, Michael immediately volunteered to lead the search. As darkness settled over Pine Hollow, the forest became strangely quiet. Usually the sounds of owls, insects, and rustling animals filled the night. This time there was only silence. Even the wind seemed to have stopped. At around 9:30 p.m., Michael reached an old wooden bridge crossing a shallow creek. That was when he heard it. A little girl was crying. The sound was soft but heartbreaking. It echoed through the trees, rising and falling as if carried by the cold night air. Michael stopped walking. "Hello," he called loudly. No one answered. The crying continued. Believing that a child had somehow wandered into the forest, Michael grabbed his flashlight and followed the sound. The strange thing was that every time he thought he was getting closer, the crying moved farther away. He walked for nearly 20 minutes, yet the distance between him and the mysterious voice never seemed to change. Suddenly, his GPS lost its signal. His radio filled with loud static. His flashlight flickered for a moment before returning to normal. The temperature dropped so quickly that Michael could see his own breath. Eventually, he stepped into a clearing where an abandoned wooden cabin stood. Broken windows stared into the darkness like empty eyes. Thick vines covered the walls, and the roof looked ready to collapse. The crying stopped. Michael cautiously entered the cabin. Dust covered every surface. Old furniture lay broken across the floor. A faded family photograph rested near the fireplace. There was no sign of anyone. As he turned to leave, the crying began again, this time directly behind the cabin. Michael rushed outside. No one was there. Instead, he noticed something unusual. Tiny barefoot footprints in the muddy ground. They belonged to a small child. The prints continued toward the thick forest, but after only a few yards, they suddenly disappeared. There were no return footprints, no animal tracks, nothing. Michael stood frozen, unable to explain what he was seeing. Just then, his radio suddenly came back to life. "Michael, where are you?" His partner, Jack, shouted. "We've been trying to reach you for over 3 hours." Michael frowned. He looked at his watch. It was only 10:05 p.m. According to Jack, however, it was already 1:30 a.m. Confused and shaken, Michael used his compass to find his way back to the ranger station. The next morning, search teams finally found Eric nearly 5 miles from the hiking trail. He was exhausted, dehydrated, and terrified. When rescuers asked what had happened, he repeated only one sentence: "I heard a little girl crying. I kept trying to help her, but I could never find her." Doctors believed Eric had become disoriented after wandering through the forest at night. Michael didn't tell anyone about what he had experienced. Several weeks later, while organizing old files at the ranger station, he discovered a newspaper clipping from 1968. The article described a tragic camping accident. During a violent thunderstorm, a 6-year-old girl had disappeared from her family's campsite near the eastern side of Pine Hollow Forest. Hundreds of volunteers searched for nearly 2 weeks. The only thing they found was one small shoe lying near the abandoned cabin. Her body was never recovered. At the bottom of the article was a short paragraph mentioning that local residents claimed they continued hearing a little girl crying in the forest for years after the tragedy. Officials dismissed the reports as grief, imagination, and superstition. Michael wanted to believe that explanation, but the strange reports never stopped. Campers occasionally reported hearing a child crying late at night, but the strange reports never stopped. Campers occasionally reported hearing a child crying late at night. Hunters claimed they became lost after following the mysterious sound. Several hikers said their watches displayed the wrong time. After hearing the crying, none of these incidents could ever be scientifically explained. Years passed. Michael retired from the Forest Service, but never forgot that night. One autumn evening, a documentary filmmaker interviewed him about unexplained events in America's national forests. The interviewer asked, "Did you ever witness something you couldn't explain?" Michael remained silent for several seconds. Finally, he answered quietly, "I've spent my entire career trusting facts instead of legends. But one night I heard a little girl crying in those woods. I searched everywhere and there wasn't a single person there. I still don't know what I heard. Do you believe it was a ghost?" The interviewer asked. Michael looked through the window toward the distant tree line. "I don't know," he replied. "Maybe it was the echo of a terrible tragedy. Maybe it was something our minds can't understand. Or maybe some places never truly let go of the past." Even today, Pine Hollow National Forest welcomes thousands of visitors every year. Most leave with nothing more than photographs and unforgettable memories. But every so often, someone reports hearing the faint sound of a little girl crying somewhere among the trees. Search teams always investigate. They never find anyone. Only silent woods, an abandoned cabin, and the haunting echo of a child who may still be waiting to be found.